after the Uri attack, and I think the Prime Minister had vowed that those behind the attack would not go unpunished. But nobody expected what followed next, this cross-border strike that happened.
This is 18th of September 2016 we are talking about, that afternoon. And on 28th September by evening, we launched this operation. 29th morning, we announced the surgical strike. We went far deep inside. We were so deep inside in this where you could be cut off by the Pakistan military. Leadership asked the Director General of Military Operations to come in full uniform and announce to the world media that we did it, unlike what Pakistan denies after sending terrorists. We said we did it, and we did it because you did Uri.
Isn't that what a leader prays for? That when my men go into battle, they come back successful.
Yes, successful is the operative word. We also want success, but we want our men back safely.
Hello and welcome to the Statesman Talk. I'm Ananya Dasgupta. On this episode, we are joined by Lieutenant General Satish Dua. He retired as the Chief of the Integrated Defence Staff. He was the GOC of the 15 Corps in Kashmir and the Corps Commander when the surgical strike took place in 2016. It's an honor to have you on the show, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ananya. Thank you for inviting me. It's nice to be here with you.
General Dua, you're now writing books about some of your bravest men, right? You're choosing to tell some of those untold stories. Your latest book is about Naib Subedar Chunni Lal. And you write, I'm quoting from one of those descriptions, which says that all Indian Army officers are brave, but Naib Subedar Chunni Lal stood out as one of the bravest. At 5'3", he was mighty tall. Why do you think his story needed to be told?
It's really a very apt question to start this talk with, interview with. Like I said, all Indian Army soldiers, and I salute all soldiers, all are brave. Chunni and I are from the same battalion, so I have been in combat with him. I've known him more closely. Why his story needs to be told is this. He has a very unique service record. As soon as he enrolled after 1 year of training, and then they come to the battalion. When he came to our battalion was inducting into the glacier, Siachen Glacier.
Okay.
And straight away we went into an operation in 1987. 86 he joined. 87 we went into an operation. And my battalion executed the highest attack in the world at 21,153 feet.
I see.
He was part of then Naib Subedar Bana Singh's section. Chunni and Lakshman, two of them, buddy pair, were the first to reach the top as a part of that assaulting section. And where Naib Subedar Bana Singh got Paramveer Chakra, we got one Mahavir Chakra, Subedar Sansachan got Mahavir Chakra, 7 Veer Chakras, 10 Sena medals. So, and many commendation cards. The point I'm trying to make, start of his career, he was baptized by fire. He was the youngest awardee. At the age of 19, he was awarded a Sena medal. And then continued the saga of how he matured into an NCO, a Havaldar. His upbringing was among heroes. I mean, imagine in his section, in his battalion, there was a Paramveer Chakra, Mahavir Chakra, whether he plays basketball or volleyball or he does a rifle firing practice, every time he was among heroes. So that was his nurturing. And then he matured into a very fine NCO. Not just brave, not reckless, but controlled. He would ensure that there are no casualties. When he was a Havaldar, we were on the line of control. I was the commanding officer. I had the proud privilege of being his commanding officer. And as I write in the book, when Chunni was there in an encounter with terrorists, I would rest assured. He had that kind of presence. He inspired his soldiers. He inspired us.
You relied on him totally.
Yes. So he got, in that tenure, he was awarded Veer Chakra.
Right.
Actually, he should have gotten many more awards, the number of operations he participated in, but we don't do that. I mean, there are others who showed bravery too. And exactly 20 years after that first attack where he got Sena medal, to date, 24th June 1987, the Bana top attack started. And on 24th June 2007, then now Naib Subedar Chunni, a JCO, he was then on the line of control in Kupwara, North Kashmir. In an operation, he he really displayed undaunted bravery. He killed 3 terrorists. The whole operation is there in this book, The Bravest of the Brave.
Right.
And he was awarded Ashok Chakra posthumously because he was killed in action. So this is the unique story that he started his life in an operation, he ended his life in an operation, in several combat operations in between, where once was the Veer Chakra, but he also went and participated in operations in Somalia under UN peacekeeping forces. He participated in operations in Sudan and in another European peacekeeping operations, and many such experiences in between. So I think that was a life replete with operations. And I think that's why the story, his story would inspire the youth, both soldiers and citizens alike.
Your association with Kashmir spans over 40 years. You've seen how militancy sprung up in the valley in the 1990s. You've seen how the army evolved its response to it. You've written about that response through the story of a terrorist turned soldier, Nazir Wani. Why is his story so inspirational?
His story is absolutely out of this world. This is in this book, A General Reminiscences. Now, Nazir Wani, again, was such a brave heart. Firstly, it is a story of Kashmiri patriotism. Nazir Wani was from Kulgam. Now, the stories that normally come out of Kashmir are those of terrorism and violence. But in my regiment, the Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry, we have so many soldiers from the Kashmir Valley. In fact, 50% of my regiment comprises of Muslims. And so many of them are from the valley. But they acquit themselves with great bravery, no less than any other soldier. These sons of soil face a lot of challenges because in their village, in their community, some of them are hated because they are serving in the army. So his is a story of a terrorist. He started his life on the wrong path. He started off as a terrorist. Then he surrendered, among others, and I'll talk about that later. As a surrendered terrorist, he formed part of a force called Ikhwan. Ikhwan was a contra-rebel group formed by our country that helped the army and Assam Rifles over 9 years, from 1993 to 2003. Ikhwan worked well with the army and the Rashtriya Rifles and the police, and they were successful in bringing many terrorists to book, and that really helped us conduct the 1996 elections in J&K. And Mr. Dullat writes in his book that election, 96 elections, the state elections, were a turning point. So coming back to his story, so the Ikhwan then as an experiment was wound up because of certain issues. And while there are, then we launched on a bolder experiment. So while there are other examples in the world of contra-rebels in South America and other countries, but there is no parallel to what I'm going to tell you. After that, we launched another bolder experiment. We made an army battalion out of these surrendered terrorists. And that battalion is from my regiment. And this is the story that I wanted to write. All along, I had this thing, I will talk about them. But when I actually wrote the story, by then, Nazir Wani, Lasnayak Nazir Ahmad Wani, had been awarded Ashok Chakra posthumously in 2019. So he is the protagonist of my story. Through his story, I talk of these 4 decades of turbulence in Kashmir, in J&K, how the ups and downs of militancy, what was the national response, the state response, the security forces' response to it, how we raised Rashtriya Rifles, the territorial, the Ikhwan, the territorial army, home and hearth battalions, of which Nazir Wani was a part, the role that they played in curbing terrorism. And it's just a very strange, peculiar coincidence that my first posting, and I was commissioned, was in Kashmir in January 1980. After my leave, I landed up there. And Nazir Wani was born a few months after that. And exactly 24 days after I retired, after I hung up my boots, he, in a daring operation, he was killed in action. So his entire life coincided with my service in Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry. So I could sort of weave two narratives talking about my experiences and his stories and bring this all about. So that is why this book is talking about the Braveheart, talking about Kashmiri patriotism, but in a sense it brings out the rise and fall of militancy, the state response to militancy, and several other interactions at the political level, diplomatic level, national level. As I grew up in ranks, one interacted with higher level of people, etc.
Yeah.
And
So it's a fascinating way to tell the story of Kashmir and of Nazir Wani.
Yes.
Let's go back now to the deadly surgical strike in 2016. When the deadly Uri attack, in fact, the surgical strikes, of course, followed after that. But after the Uri attack, and I think the Prime Minister had vowed that those behind the attack would not go unpunished. But nobody expected what followed next. This cross-border strike that happened. What do you remember of that interim period, the period between the attack and the surgical strike, and who took that final call to go ahead and cross the border and strike?
So Ananya, that book there, was my first book, India's Bravehearts. The first story, there are 12 stories in that. The first narrative is about the surgical strike. So what I'm going to tell you is what is all there in that book. The terrorist attack at Uri took place when I was a corps commander. And I sat on 18th of September 2016. I sadly lost 18 soldiers on my watch. It's something that weighs down very heavily on a commander's mind. Just like I talk about when I was commanding officer of my battalion, and I talk about that, other stories in that same book. I have been in combat and I lost 8 soldiers, including 2 majors and 6 other ranks. These things weigh very heavily on the minds of a commander. So that day, on 18 September, early morning, when I got the news that our base at Uri has been attacked, it is very close to the LOC. You landed there, you were showing me some pictures, so you know where it is, how close to the LOC it is. It's bang on the LOC practically. And I went to Uri, I took stock of the situation, I took a chopper, and the fires were raging. We coordinated the operations over there. The army chief arrived, he also took stock. And then we got the news that I got a call, in fact, from the defense secretary saying that the defense minister is arriving there. I remember my first reactive outburst was, why today? I didn't want more VIPs on my hands. So many operational issues were going on. Yeah. There was so much logistics to be done. There were so many calls from governor, chief minister, leadership in Delhi, and so on and so forth. And there was grief.
So you didn't want to hire. You were not in a position to host a VIP.
I thought this is not the day for VIPs. Frankly, what happens normally, especially the army chief would be there, the army commander would be there. This is our military response.
Of course.
But normally the leaders come later. They don't. The political leaders actually come a little late. But Mr. Mohan told me, the defense secretary said, but he's already taken off. Late Mr. Manohar Parrikar was the defense minister.
Yes.
In the afternoon, we received him at the airport. Army chief and I, we were there. And he wanted to go to Uri. And I said, no, sir, you can't do that. This is not recommended. The operations are still going on. In fact, there were still fires burning because a cookhouse had caught fire. I said, sir, I'll take you to my headquarters at the Badami Bagh cantonment. I'll give you a brief there. He agreed. We took a short helicopter ride to the headquarters. One was thinking during that ride, what good can come out of it?
Yeah.
Because that day, the mood of the nation was one of anger.
Absolutely.
Let me recall for you and the viewers that a few months before that, a suicide terrorist attack had taken place at the Pathankot Air Base. Then in between, there was an attack at a 6-story EDI building in Pampore on the outskirts of Srinagar, where 66 hostages were taken. But we got all the hostages out. But it was a deadly 2 days operation. We
Yes.
paid a heavy price of 3 brave hearts also. So the mood of the nation was captured on that day. Mr. Parrikar, when I finished briefing him, and I must clarify for the viewers that while Army Chief was there and the Army Commander was there, but Kashmir was my domain, like you brought out.
Yeah.
So as it is done in the Army, I was briefing him. It was my call. It had to be done that way. And then he asked, "To ab kya karna hai?" So I said, "Sir, if you mean what should our response be, then I'd like to brief you separately, not in front of a big gathering in the operational room." So we went to my office. Only 4 of us. And the Army Chief obviously spoke first. He gave his response, and he talks at the national level. That's his job.
Sure.
That's above my pay grade. He talks of criticalities between India, Pakistan, and let's say it spirals into something bigger. What are our preparedness levels and things like that. That's his call. Well, when he turned towards me, I actually wanted to grab his attention. I said, "Aap haan keh do, main kar dunga." He said, "What?" I said, "Sir, we always are defensive when they send terrorists. We don't have terrorists to send across. They send in their terrorists and they kill our citizens, they kill our soldiers, they sometimes mutilate our bodies and go back. And we don't have terrorists to send across. So let us do something very different this time. Let us go on the offensive." I said, "How?" So we know they're terrorist camps, but they're inside. They're across the border. We'll have to cross the LOC. But we'll hit the terrorist locations, terrorist camps, training camps, and we'll get back. We'll not entangle with the Pakistan army. And we should take ownership. Like Pakistan denies that they have sent in terrorists. They say they are your freedom fighters. We should take ownership that we have done this because you did duty." I really thought he would go back to Delhi and say, I will talk to the Prime Minister and get back. But he gave a permission then and there, after thinking for some time, asking a few other questions, which I obviously cannot disclose here. And he asked the questions to me, the Chief and Army Commander, but eventually he gave an okay. And then he said, "No, but we should not have any casualties." I said, "Sir, I agree with you, there should be no casualties, but this is war. Kuch bhi ho sakta hai. We have to be prepared to accept some casualties." And then again he thought, he was undecided for some time. But to his credit, he just said one word after that, "Barobar."
So the decision was taken by Manohar Parrikar. It happened over a few hours, then and there.
Yes.
He didn't go back and ask for permission. He took the call right there.
Ananya, the short answer is yes. Many times people have asked me, to what do you credit this achievement? Because, this is something that has never been done before. It has drawn new red lines. It has put Pakistan on back foot. It set the stage for similar, in fact, a bigger, bolder step of precision airstrikes deep in the country.
Balakot.
Jabba Top near Balakot, actually. So it was a good operation that way. When people ask me, to whom do you credit that? I always say, of course, the credit goes to the special forces guys who actually risk their lives and go inside. Went inside, risked their lives, did the operation, came back. And, when you take a fortune favors the brave, and we did not have a single casualty. But the bigger credit, I think, goes to Mr. Parrikar. Because he gave a decision then and there. When, like I said, the mood of the nation was one of anger, we got a decision. If somebody comes a week later, 10 days later, gussa thanda ho jata hai. There are so many factors at play. So I think his coming there, but more importantly, giving us the decision on the spot. And this is 18th of September 2016 we are talking about, that afternoon. And on 28th September by evening, we launched this operation. 29th morning, we announced the surgical strike.
So we were fortunate to have firm leadership at that point.
Absolutely.
But everybody who was part of that meeting at that point would have had to consider the repercussions, the political repercussions, the diplomatic repercussions as well.
So on 8, the United Nations General Assembly was in session that time.
I see.
This happened on 18th, this terror attack, and we lost 18 soldiers in Uri, and we lost the 19th in hospital a couple of days later. So it happened on 18th of September. Our diplomatic force, the diplomatic instrument, the element, actually worked their part of it. And by 21st September was Mr. Nawaz Sharif, the Pakistan Prime Minister's speech.
At the UN.
And at the UN. And during those days, I think the diplomacy worked their part and they mobilized the opinion, and the world was, condemning Pakistan for this heinous attack. And so then that 3 days were good. Then again on 25th of September, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj's speech was there. She was the foreign minister.
Yes.
It was her speech in the General Assembly. So we also made sure that we will not launch the operation before that. Because should something go wrong, there are many imponderables. Now it's a success story. So that time we didn't know the outcome. So we made sure it happened after that. So what I'm trying to say, and plus it gave the diplomats and the leadership to play their part. So that is why this was enmeshing of different instruments of power together.
I'm just wondering what would have gone through your mind in that period between the Uri attack and the surgical strike, the stress that you would have undergone, the anger all across the country. There would be so many untold stories of that period of leading up to the day of the surgical strike and on that day itself. Would you share some of them with us?
Very frankly, Ananya, I will not be able to share most of the stories because for the reason that they are confidential. I can only talk about our attitudes and state of mind. I think everyone was very focused because we were given the go-ahead, and we realized from a soldier who went across to the leadership, even those above me, we realized the onerous responsibility that rests on our shoulders. We have been given the permission to do something, to join the very small, select number of countries that do this policy of hot pursuit and go inside another territory and strike. And we must not let them down. So everyone was very focused, very diligent. But yes, I'm sure whether it was me or the army commander or the chief or the leadership, everyone had moments of self-doubt. And I think whenever I would find little time, I would only be praying. I found myself oddly, more than the success of the operation, I found myself praying and wishing that we don't have casualties among our soldiers.
Isn't that what a leader prays for? That when my men go into battle, they come back successful.
Yes, successful is the operative word. We also want success, but we want our men back safely. There's a difference between fighting on the borders. When you fight the enemy to defend your territorial integrity. In the army, we say that we fight to last man, last round. In the army, for a bullet, the word is round.
Right.
So we fight to the last man, last bullet. When at Razangla, out of 120, the whole company, only 6 survived. Everybody was wiped out. Saragadi, all 22 were wiped out. So there you fight to the last man and the last bullet. But when we fight terrorists, we don't want to lose our soldiers. Right. I always have been saying, I've been always in counter-terrorism operation at all my levels from major to lieutenant general. And I've been saying, these terrorists are not worth it. I don't want to lose one of my soldiers for killing terrorists. A terrorist has a shelf life. I always say, aaj nahi to kal marega, idhar nahi to udhar marega. So there we don't want to lose our soldiers in counter-terrorism.
You're saying this was not, technically speaking, India's first surgical strike, but it was the first time India owned up to it.
Yes, there have been a lot of talk about that in political, even military circles. And I do agree, operations on the LOC have taken place earlier. But I have myself participated in some such operations. I've written about that in this latest book, where Chunilal participated in such operations. But the difference is, firstly, the depth. It's something on the LOC. LOC is a very sort of a nebulous, ambiguous concept. It is there. It is quite well marked. But, the cattle, the villagers are living till right in the line of control, both sides. Sometimes the LOC is actually crossing through a village. They have relatives across. They shout across. Sometimes they slip across. Sometimes the cattle strays across. So LC is a little porous concept. And so there is a different dynamics at the LC. We call it LC in the army, so LOC for you and the viewers. So there, such operations have taken place. The difference is in, first, the depth. We went far deep inside.
I see.
We were so deep inside in this, where you could be cut off by the Pakistan military. And we could have been sort of bottled up there. And now, the second difference is in the multiple locations that we went in with coordination. It was to an intent. And third is the diplomatic angle that was weaved in. So different instruments of power were sort of weaved in. And the last, which is most important perhaps, is the ownership. The country took ownership. The next day, the leadership asked the Director General of Military Operations to come in full uniform and announce to the world media that we did it, unlike what Pakistan denies after sending terrorists. We said, we did it, and we did it because you did Uri, and we don't want to escalate this. I think he said, the onus of escalation is on you.
Right. I think most of us remember that particular press conference. People were glued to the TV channels because surgical strike was an unfamiliar term for most of us. And we were trying to figure out what was happening. Is this a strike on Pakistan? What it meant? You've served 40 years in Kashmir. As your publisher says, your tryst with Kashmir has been for over 40 years.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I've served 4 decades. Not all of it is in Kashmir, because we do come out. We don't alternate tenures. My bulk of my service has been there in Jammu and Kashmir. But I'm also from the Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry Regiment. So that makes my connect stronger in every village, in every place. So I have a different kind of connect. Yeah. Sorry.
I was wondering, when was the last time you went back to Kashmir, and what your sense was now visiting Kashmir ever, post the 370 application?
I have been to Kashmir after my retirement 4 or 5 times.
Okay.
And I have now gone to the interiors, to Kulgam, to Anantnag, to Avantipura. I've gone to those South Kashmir, the hotbeds, without any protection parties. I went to meet his family, Nazir Wani's family in Kulgam, and I met some surrendered terrorists in Anantnag. It is a little risky, but on the other hand, it was quite liberating to go without your quick reaction teams and protections. You stopping at a traffic light and things like that. Since my Jackal Eye Regimental Center is there, and of course the Corps headquarters, I visit that fondly every time. The last visit was exactly 2 years ago, and I have seen the difference after Article 370 was diluted. There is a sea change. I can tell you about how development has come about, how Panchayat Raj has come about, the 3-tier political process, Panchayat is in place. I can tell you about how many development projects have taken place. Now you see the markets are open. You see the tricolor on Lal Chowk. Markets are open. There is no unpredictability. Earlier, the tourists did not know whether the market will be open today or not. The number of tourists has increased manifold. This crossed 2 crores this season.
Right.
It's the youth of that place. They enjoy interrupted studies. The Hurriyat does not issue any Band calendar. The schools are open. There is no stone pelting on the street, no violence spilling on the streets. The youth are enjoying seeing multiplex movies. There were no cinema halls.
And going to restaurants.
Going to restaurant. There is KFC. There is Haldiram, and there are more. I mean, I just can name a couple of them. So the youth are seeing things that they only watched on internet. They are experiencing it themselves. But more than all this, I said, I'm saying I could tell you all about this. But other day I saw a video clip of a bus going in the interiors. On the social media, I said, I love my India. That is the sea change. It used to be on buses were green flags, black flags, and there used to be Jeeve Pakistan. Those were the slogans on buses. That is the change we are looking at. I'm not saying, Ananya, that there is no alienation anymore. There are pockets of alienation, and it has been only 5 years. It will take a couple of generations for that attitudinal shift to come. But today's youth is now questioning their earlier generations as to what have you achieved by doing this. We've only put them back. They've not achieved anything. What a model to follow. Is Pakistan a model to follow? You want to join that country? Look at the country economically, politically, militarily, diplomatically, every which wise the country is in dumps.
Right.
So, and India is on a growth path. So the youth are smart enough to realize what to follow. So there are pockets of alienation. It will take some time. But what we see today is a very encouraging start.
That's good to know from somebody who's so familiar with Kashmir and has served in various corners of Jammu and Kashmir. But talking about Kashmir, the Pakistan Army Chief recently called Kashmir the jugular vein of Islamabad. What's your take on that?
I was on a news channel that very day giving my response to this. So first I'll repeat what I said there, and then I'll talk about something more profound. You see, firstly, talking about jugular vein. Let me rephrase my answer. In Pakistan, or shall I say, Kashmir is the glue that binds Pakistan. Today, like I said earlier, Pakistan is really mired in problems. Economically, diplomatically, politically. I mean, the political parties, they put Imran Khan, who's a hugely popular leader in a party, he's in jail. The others are trying to hang on to a coalition. They are subservient to the military, actually. And financially, they are living on doles. These terrorists have surrounded them from all sides. The Baloch rebels on one side, the Pashtun, they were on the others. They kind of, whoever heard of train jacking in the world? Then they hope to have strategic space in Afghanistan. It's the other way around. The Pashtuns have made Khyber Pakhtunkhwa their strategic space. Under such circumstances, there is only one option, and that is India bashing, to divert the minds of the public. And when they have to divert the minds of the public, I said earlier, Kashmir is a glue that binds Pakistan. Why I say that always is that a child in the schools in Pakistan is always taught that nara, that slogan, Kashmir banega Pakistan. The child does not even know where or sometimes even what Kashmir is.
Right.
But he just starts talking like that. So that is one aspect. As to the fact of calling it a jugular vein, I think that's so absurd. How can somebody else's territory be your jugular vein? So that's absurd. I won't comment more on that. But on a more serious note, that interview was to the Pakistani diaspora. What more would you expect a Pakistan Army Chief to say?
He's addressing his domestic audience.
His domestic audience. He, over the years, what can a Pakistan Army Chief say? He only has to toe these lines. There is no escape for Pakistani leadership. some Pakistani journalist, a young girl, young lady, has actually made fun of his speech in between. I don't know if you've seen it on social media. It's going viral on social media. She breaks down every paragraph of his and then says, "Oh, this is okay." So that's very nice. But the establishment has to talk the way he talks. And to my mind, General Asif Munir does not really have the kind of depth and stature to really talk different. Someone like General Bajwa still tried to make peace. He signed a ceasefire. He had his own aura, but not General Bashir. He's known as Maulvi. So we know he's going to take the country down the path which Ziaul Haq did, perhaps.
Right. In the end, General Dua, you've had an illustrious career. You write on Facebook, you motivate our soldiers, the aspiring soldiers as well. You share your comments and thoughts on Twitter as well. How do you see our defense forces evolving over the next few decades?
Our defense forces, for the last few years, we have been on a threshold of modernization. I would put it this way, that our modernization was put on a hold for about a decade in between, for different reasons. Not get into the politics of it. But of late, we've started doing this modernization. We have started pursuing modernization not only in deed, that is in terms of getting the equipment, platforms, weapons and ammunition, but also in thought. That is, we are now looking at the new frontiers of cyber, space, emerging technologies, whether it is the world of cyberspace, but also the thing of drones, artificial intelligence, robotics. These are the things of the future. And we are also looking at the information space, because today, as you know, you are a professional in this line, you understand how important is this dimension of the mind space, the cognitive space. So that is very important. We see this happening in Israel, Gaza, and Russia, Ukraine. So I think Indian Army is, or armed forces, I would say, are modernizing. In the long run, for the long run, several schemes have been launched. Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense, the entry of public sector in the defense sector has been liberalized, in fact incentivized, using the academia to collaborate with in the R&D aspects, and many new startups. We are encouraging there are different schemes to encourage startups in defense. Sorry. So all this is happening, but this takes time. There is a long gestation period for it to mature into results. Something like drones and cybers may come faster, but to make tanks and planes, of course, we've started making tanks and guns also, but something like aircrafts and all that is taking time. It will. Shipbuilding is started with earnest, aircraft with some help, with some engines. So
Make in India.
Make in India is happening in a big way. Also, the immediate needs are being plugged by some judicious acquisitions from the other countries, whether it is Rafale or leasing some high quality drones from the US, or it is some other weapon systems that we've S-400, etc., that we've got from Russia. So we are hedging our bets, and we are making something we require for the moment to tide us over these few years till our Make in India fructifies to a level that we are more indigenous and less on exports. We draw a judicious balance. So I see our modernization moving at a pace which sometimes when I was in service, I would feel more impatient. No, this is not happening fast enough. But all these things take a little longer gestation period.
General Dua, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Statesman Talk. And let's tell our viewers that this is General Dua's latest book. It's available online for ordering, and he's spoken at length now about this book. So don't forget to pick it up and to share your comments and thoughts on the stories that he's telling, the untold stories of India's brave hearts. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We come to you from The Statesman, which is one of India's oldest English newspapers.